Welcome back to AKC Style, the place for figure skaters who want to learn how to skate their hearts out, compete at their highest potential, and spend as much time practicing their inner work as they spend physically training on the ice. Let's get started. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about a lesson I had this morning, with a skater that I work with doing private lessons, and her lesson today, her skating, blew my mind. And it wasn't because her skating was perfect or she's doing, like amazing elements or anything like that. It's because she had a complete breakthrough this morning in her lesson with me. And that's the thing that blew my mind. She wasn't perfect. She actually did make quite a few mistakes that resulted in her falling, but she was able to hop right back up and then try the element again. She was very diligent and persistent in what she was doing, and she was doing things very deliberately, not diligent, but deliberately. She was listening, paying attention, and that's what was great to see in her lesson. That's the thing that blew my mind. But the breakthrough, what resulted in her having a breakthrough were two specific things that I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to talk about those two things. I'm going to give you some context, and then I'm going to expand on those two things and how she had this breakthrough and why. So the two things that she did that resulted in her having this breakthrough today were, number one, she skated in a new environment with people that she doesn't know very well or at all, in a rink that she's been to before, but she's not comfortable in. Right? It's not a familiar rink in terms of like how she practices. She's been there for a competition before. And then the second thing that she did was skate on center ice, which I haven't really seen her do before consistently. And part of the reason why she was skating center ice was because the recession was so busy, there was really no other spot for her. But instead of shying away and trying to either find a corner to skate in or going and looping around the rink a million times to wait for an opening in a spot that's comfortable where she thinks no one's going to pay attention to her, she just went right on center ice because she knew, there's only so much time in this session. There's only so much time she has with me. So if she didn't skate center ice, then she's going to waste the time. And watching her work through those two things in her lesson this morning really blew my mind, and it resulted in her having a major breakthrough, kind of like an aha moment, light bulb went off. So to give you some context about this skater, so we just recently started working together doing private lessons, and she works very, very hard. She practices a lot. She practices on ice multiple days a week. Whenever she can do off ice, she does. She works very hard. She has natural skill and ability, but she doesn't rely on that. So like some people have the natural ability to just move effortlessly across the ice, and some people have to really work towards that. But this is something that came natural to her, but she doesn't rely on that. She really puts an effort in to get better and progress. She's always watching and learning about skating wherever she can, whenever she can get the information, and from whoever or wherever she can find the information, she absorbs it like a sponge and tries her best to execute it out on the ice. She's not overly obsessed with reaching the next level in her skating, but progress is important to her. So, as a coach, a lot of times I see skaters who just want to get to the next level so that they can say that they're at that next level, but they don't understand the process that it takes to get there. So if you want to move from, freestyle 5 to freestyle 6, the elements that are required of you in freestyle 6, and you have to pass those elements in freestyle 6 to move on to that level. But some skaters want to skip the process in between those two, and like understanding the amount of stamina that you need in order to progress to freestyle 6 from freestyle 5, the amount of physical strength that you'll need to execute your double jumps and more difficult spin variations that are included in freestyle 6, the technical skating skills and ability that you'll need to be able to control your turns and edges in the Freestyle 6 footwork. And that takes time. And not every skater is going to be able to execute those skills in the same amount of time as someone else. Some skaters work on one level for a whole season because they want to not only get so much better working on the next level, and then maybe even some of the elements in the level after that, but they want to compete and they want to win in this level that they're currently at. So that's more important to them than the number that they're at, the freestyle level that they're on right now. That's not as important to them as understanding the process on how to get to the next level and really executing everything very technically well. So she's definitely a skater who is like that. And I think that really is why she's competitive. She does compete. So that's important to her to be able to do the skills correctly, but also she's not rushing herself. You know, a lot of times people forget when they move up to the next level, like you're one person. If you want to compete, you don't want to compete and you want to test, you know, maybe testing is really like what's important to you and you just want to move through the levels to kind of prove to yourself that you can do it. You're not doing it for recognition. You're not doing it for anyone else. It's just for yourself. And that's perfectly fine. That's really what I did in the last end of my competitive skating time in my life, because I don't compete anymore, but as a soloist. And testing became like my main focus because I was so nervous when it came to competition and I could never get over my nerves. So it wasn't fun for me. And a lot of skaters feel like that too. That's normal, I think. But, you know, I think when you're so focused on the number or the freestyle level that you're on, or the test level that you're on, let's say you're working on moves in the field, a lot of times you get caught up in what everyone else is doing or what you think everyone else thinks you should be doing, instead of focusing on like, no, what if I stay here and I get really, really good at this freestyle level and I compete, and every time I compete, I win, or, you know, in the top of my group. And then, you know, in the meantime, in practice, I work on the skills that are in the level above me. And then I get really, really good at that. So then by the time I'm ready to test, I know for sure I'm going to pass, number one. And number two, I know that I'm going to be just as competitive in that next level as I was in the previous. And I think sometimes skaters have a misconception of what moving to the next level really looks like. You know, everybody's working really hard on, you know, that particular level. Let's just stay with the example of freestyle 5 and 6. So let's say you're a freestyle 5 skater in ISI and you want to move to freestyle 6. So, you know, that's your main focus. That's your big goal, is to test and pass for freestyle 6 so you can compete at freestyle 6. But when you're there and you reach your first competition, and you're competing that program for the first time at freestyle 6, there are skaters that you'll be competing against who've been at freestyle 6 for sometimes like multiple seasons. And it's not because, you know, they're not good enough to pass to 7, or it's not because they want to just keep winning at freestyle 6. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's that there's one element in the next level in freestyle 7 that they can't get, so they're still at freestyle 6. So you're going to be competing against people who have been at that level for quite some time. And to go in and think that, one, you're automatically going to win just because you want to, and now because you're at freestyle 6, now that automatically makes you a good skater, is really just delusional, actually, to think that. Now, when you focus on the number or the level that you're at instead of your skill, instead of your ability, instead of your stamina, instead of the technique that you have in your skating, that's where you get lost and you start to kind of feel like competing isn't fun anymore and you're always losing, and it's hard to kind of break through on these big flights that you're in when you move up to a harder level. And then I feel like a lot of skaters get lost in that kind of process, or the lack of that process that they create for themselves when they move up to the next level. because they're not thinking about things in the right way, in my opinion, of course. Like, another example is how a lot of skaters end up quitting if they go through the ranks in ISI when they get to freestyle 4, because the axle seems so daunting in freestyle 5. And in order to pass freestyle 5, you need to have your axle. So some skaters are really excited to try their axle, to try doubles, to try more difficult spins, more difficult jump combinations. That sounds like a great challenge for some skaters, but some skaters that just feels like impossible. Or maybe they reach a certain age and they don't have their axle yet, so they feel like they're too old to execute it properly, or they don't want to get hurt, so they quit. And they don't just say, I'm going to be at freestyle 4 forever. They actually quit skating altogether. And, I think as a coach, and if you're a coach listening to this, you probably can relate to this. You've probably seen this a million times over, where it's just such a shame because you have a skater who works really hard and, they're very good skaters, and they quit because of the axle. But I think when we spend too much time focusing on the goal of moving up into the next level as like your only goal as a skater, that's why we lose them. We lose them when they think, I might as well quit because I'm never going to pass freestyle 5 or go higher, so I guess I reached my cap, because that's the only goal that we've been pressing on them, the goal of moving up to the next level. When instead, you can have different goals, like I have with some of my skaters, including the one that I'm talking to you about earlier in this episode, where her goal isn't necessarily to move up to the next level consistently. That's a result of her hard work, but her goals are a little bigger than that. Her goals are about what she's going to do in the next 4 or 5 years with her life, and how much she loves skating and how she can continue to incorporate that in her life. Not every skater is like, I'm going to the Olympics and I want to be a national champion or anything like that. That's very rare that most skaters are ever going to be able to attain that level of success in that at the highest, most elite levels of our skating. That takes so much effort. I can talk about that in another episode, but there's very few people who will ever reach that. But there are so many figure skaters around the country, around the world, who will never reach that level, but continue to skate into adulthood, into long past retirement age. And it's for the love of the sport. It's because they have goals that are bigger than just reaching the next level right now and competing at a higher level right now. It's because their goals are more personal to them. And, that's where I think the skater that I work with this morning, she had her breakthrough because she's starting to realize that her personal best is enough, number one. And number two, that she can focus on things in a very microscopic way, but still progress towards her big goal. So by that, I mean, like, I'll just give you a different example, not from my skater today, because I'll talk about her a little later. But, I have another private skater that I work with who has big goals for her skating. She wants to go to college and skate. She sees other skaters around that she knows that figure skate in college. And sometimes, you're able to get to school on a scholarship, depending on what university you go to for skating. And, that's really exciting to her. So that's her big goal. So in order to do that, you have to have a certain level of skill and ability, and you have to be able to put yourself out there and be known for something within your skating for it to contribute to higher education in that way. It can't just be a casual hobby that you do once a week and then you think like you're going to really get to that level from just skating once a week. But anyway, so I feel like in just thinking about my skater from this morning and putting her context of who she is and how she fits her goals in with her skating and her schedule, she's very busy, just like the rest of us. She has some natural skill and ability, but she doesn't rely on that. And she's always trying to absorb as much information as she can from everyone around her to become better. But she also truly loves the sport, and she just wants to progress personally. So we've talked about goals a lot. If you follow my content, then you know. Talk about goals a lot, and I talk about them with my private skaters all the time. We're always trying to set a goal and then crush that goal and then move to the next one, and not in a necessarily competitive way, but a way that's productive. I don't believe in setting goals that you don't think that you can reach, that are unattainable, because the whole point is to reach the goal and then come up with the next one. So this skater that I work with that had the breakthrough is in that same kind of mindset as I am. But it doesn't mean that she's some, extraordinary human. She's very similar to you and I. She doesn't perform any elements that are just absolutely amazing or super elite. Like, she's not working on doubles and triples, and she's not trying to compete at the highest / elite levels of our sport. She's just like you and I. You can have a breakthrough no matter what skating level you're playing on. Breakthroughs aren't just mutually exclusive to elite athletes or athletes who are working on doubles and triples, like, skaters who are trying to get to nationals or whatever. You can have a breakthrough no matter who you are. Even if you're not an athlete, you can have a breakthrough, of course. So why would you think that you're not capable of progressing to a point where you've finally broken through the wall, or the point past the point where you didn't think you could ever go beyond? Of course you can have that even if you're not working on doubles and triples and all these, really amazing moves. But it takes a lot of effort on your part to be able to get to that point and to have that breakthrough. It takes being uncomfortable for a long time. It takes feeling awkward more times than you don't feel awkward. And this skater who I'm working with in her private lessons, she's really starting to come out of her shell. And she was able to do that because she's aware through the work that we do together that she was kind of putting herself into a box. And now that has that awareness, she doesn't want to be in that box, and she wants to expand her knowledge of skating, and she wants to expand her skill level, and she's open to new exercises, new drills. She's open to learning. And part of that is just her personality, but also this is what comes with taking private lessons and doing new things, right? She's broken out of her shell, and that was the first part of her breakthrough. So now this second part is going back to in the beginning when I said that there are two reasons that resulted in her having the breakthrough. One was her putting herself out there in a new environment. Putting yourself out there in a new environment helps you grow. There's almost no other possibility for you as a person. There's no other result really that you can have besides growth when you put yourself out in a new environment. It makes you feel uncomfortable. You don't have anybody familiar to kind of help, like, shield you and give you that safety blanket. You are seeing a bunch of new faces who sometimes are not the friendliest, staring back at you. And even if you see people who are familiar, you may not be very close with them. So you may not feel like you want to be vulnerable with them yet. And that's really scary. And when you're skating in a new environment, especially when you're still feeling a little awkward in your movements, or you're feeling a little uncomfortable and some of your elements aren't great. And like I was saying, she was falling a lot and she was getting right back up and trying again. It takes a lot of bravery to do that. And it takes a lot of determination to keep going despite feeling uncomfortable. And I think that if you really want to get better, you have to start putting yourself in new environments. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to do things that push you to grow. And that is huge. And, in this new environment, it's not close to her house. Like, she has to travel to get to this rink. So she's putting in time, she's putting in energy, she's putting in effort to rearrange her schedule, to get herself to the rink, to make herself go do something that she knows is going to make her feel uncomfortable and awkward, but she still does it anyway, which is part of why she had this breakthrough and why she's been able to really grow as a skater. And then the second thing, which I think is a bigger conversation that more skaters probably need to have, is this feeling of like not wanting attention, right? So like a lot of us have this, especially if you're a teenager listening to this, like I think that that's just a general thing. You just don't want any attention. You don't want people to look at you. You don't want people to notice you. But when you're a skater, especially when you're good, people are gonna watch you. They're gonna look at you. And what my skater did in her lesson today, which surprised me, I did not tell her to do this, but like I said before, this session was very busy and there wasn't a lot of space to do really anything. So she had to just figure it out. And she started skating on center ice because no one was there. Everybody was afraid to go do their spins near center ice or do more than just a pass through center ice. And that was where the space was. You have to go where the space is on a busy session. And yes, there's rink etiquette. And of course you want to follow that, especially when it's busy. So it wasn't like she was doing anything crazy in center ice, but you know, when you have to go out and do a spin and you can't, you know, go in one of the perimeter lanes because there are people who are doing dance patterns and moves in the field and things like that, so they need the perimeters of the rink to do those patterns. You have to go more towards the middle to do your spins and your edge jumps. So like that's why in a busy session it's really important to know the rink etiquette. But she went out there and she went into the center ice and she did her moves. And it feels so scary. And, you know, she admitted that she was a little nervous about it and that she felt really awkward, but she knew that she had this time with me. She's got to use this time. We're working on programs. We're working on, you know, all the goals that she has in her skating. So she's got to go out and do it. I can't do it for her. And I can't, you know, put cones around her and say, nobody come in her area. She's got to create her own space. And she did that really well today, which is why I think her breakthrough was so mind-blowing to me, because I did not expect that from her. She's not that skater, but she's becoming that skater, which was really great to see. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you today about having breakthroughs and moving through those uncomfortable transitions when you're moving to the next level in your skating, or when you're ready for some growth in your skating. You got to really focus on the two things that you really want to do the least, and that's going and putting yourself into a new environment, even if it's not on a busy session like my skater experienced today. But go and skate at a new rink. Go and skate with people that you don't know very well. And you'll be surprised what you can do when you put yourself in that new environment. And then learn how to get comfortable being seen on the ice. Learn how to start skating in center ice, especially if that's the only space that's available. You have to get comfortable with that, even if you're falling, even if you feel like everything you do is awkward, because that's the only way that you're going to grow.
Thanks so much for listening today. If you found this episode helpful, let me know in the comments, and be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. This helps other figure skaters discover my channel and also helps me decide what topics I should share with you next. Have fun out there, and I'll see you at the rink.